Have you ever heard someone say something that made your stomach twist a little, but you weren't sure why? It didn't sound mean. It wasn't loud or aggressive. But something in the way they said it, or how often they say it, left you feeling small, or confused, or guilty. That's not just a bad day. That's a red flag. And sometimes, the most manipulative words come wrapped in the softest tone. Especially for women like us, women who've spent decades being the peacekeepers, the caretakers, the ones who hold the family, the marriage, or even the workplace together. Those subtle digs and controlling phrases don't always stand out right away. We're taught to give the benefit of the doubt. To not make it a big deal. And especially, not to be too sensitive. But here's the truth, you're not being sensitive. You're being spoken to in a way that chips away at your self-trust. And recognizing these phrases for what they are? That's the first step toward reclaiming your peace. Let's talk about the kinds of words that seem small, but are actually a quiet form of control. Like this one. You always overreact. Maybe you've heard it during an argument with a partner. Maybe from your adult child when you brought up how something hurt you. Or even from a coworker brushing off something that clearly crossed a line. They say it calmly. Or maybe with a sigh. You always take things the wrong way. Or, why do you have to be so emotional? Suddenly, you're not sure if your feelings are valid. You replay the moment in your head. Was I too much? Maybe I should have let it go. But no. You had a real emotional response to something that felt wrong. And instead of listening, they flipped the script. They made you the problem. That's not communication. That's manipulation. And I want you to hear this, from someone who's been through it, you are allowed to react. You are allowed to feel. That's not too sensitive, that's being human. Here's another one that shows up in families all the time. After everything I've done for you. That one stings, doesn't it? It's said like a guilt trip wrapped in gratitude. Maybe your partner says it when you ask for more help or space. Maybe your grown child says it when you finally set a boundary. Maybe your sibling says it when you don't agree to something that crosses a line. After everything I've done for you. It's designed to shut you down. To make you feel selfish for having needs. But love doesn't keep score. Kindness doesn't come with strings. You're not ungrateful for asking to be treated with respect. You're not the bad guy for saying this doesn't feel fair. And you're not obligated to shrink yourself just because someone else brings up the past like a weapon. Sometimes these phrases come dressed in niceness. Like this one. I'm just trying to help. On the surface, it sounds kind. Who doesn't want help? But let's be honest, help that ignores your boundaries isn't really help. It's control with a smile. Maybe your partner tries to control what you wear or how you eat and calls it help. Maybe your daughter insists she knows what's best for you now that you're older, and doesn't listen to your no. Maybe your boss constantly criticizes your work under the guise of just trying to help. If that help makes you feel small, unheard, or anxious, it's not help. And you're allowed to say, I know you mean well, but I didn't ask for this. These phrases, however common, are red flags because they're not about connecting. They're about keeping you in a role, quiet, grateful, easy to manage. But you're not here to be managed. You're here to be seen, heard, and respected. And if any of this feels familiar, if you've walked away from a conversation wondering why you suddenly feel so unsure of yourself, please know, it's not in your head. You're not overreacting. You're noticing what your body and your heart have been trying to tell you all along. You're waking up to the truth. And that is such a powerful thing. There's another phrase that's so easy to overlook, but it carries a heavy message underneath. It's this one. That never happened. Have you ever shared something that hurt you, only to be told it didn't happen at all? Maybe you bring up a comment that made you feel dismissed, and they say, you're imagining things. Or you remind someone of how they treated you in a hard season of life, and they respond, I never said that. It's not just frustrating. It's destabilizing. Because you start questioning your own memory. You ask yourself, did I make it up? Am I remembering it wrong? That's not just a disagreement. That's gaslighting. And when this keeps happening over time, you stop trusting your own eyes and ears. You start second-guessing your truth, even when it's crystal clear in your heart. If you're over 60, and especially if you've spent years with someone like this, a partner, a family member, even a close friend, it can be deeply painful to realize you were made to feel confused on purpose. But the fact that you're noticing it now? That you're here, listening, and reflecting? That's strength. Another phrase that should immediately raise a red flag is, "You're lucky I put up with you." That one's cruel. And it often comes after a disagreement, when you're trying to express a boundary or share your feelings. Instead of hearing you, they turn the tables and act like you're the burden. It's meant to make you feel less than. Like they're doing you a favor by staying in your life. But love isn't charity. Respect doesn't sound like punishment. And you're not lucky they tolerate you. They're lucky to be in your life, if they treat you well. Let's talk about one that shows up a lot in family settings, especially when you're the go-to person everyone expects to hold it all together. It sounds like, "Why are you making this so difficult?" You say no to a request that's too much. You speak up about something that crossed a line. And suddenly, you're the problem. They say you're making things complicated, when really, you're just asking for your feelings to matter too. Maybe it's your adult son who only calls when he needs something, and when you finally say, "I can't help this time," he hits you with, "You're being difficult." Or maybe your sister wants you to host another holiday gathering, even though you're exhausted, and when you say you need a break, she says, "Why are you being so dramatic?" These are pressure tactics. They're used to shut you down quickly and get their way. But they have nothing to do with your worth, your heart, or your truth. Saying no does not make you difficult. Having boundaries does not make you selfish. And if someone truly respects you, they'll want to hear your real answer, not guilt you into silence. Sometimes the phrases are subtle. They sound polite. Or even sweet. But you feel yourself shrinking every time you hear them. Maybe someone says, "I just worry about you," but only after criticizing your choices. Or, "I'm only saying this because I love you," right before they tear you down. That's emotional confusion. And it's often how toxic patterns hide in plain sight. But you don't have to keep doubting yourself. You've lived long enough to know how your body feels when something's off. Maybe it's a tightness in your chest. A sudden wave of guilt you can't explain. Or just that quiet, uneasy feeling that stays long after the conversation is over. Those are signals. And just because someone speaks gently, or shares your last name, doesn't mean their words are harmless. You deserve communication that builds you up, not breaks you down. So what do you do when you start recognizing these red flag phrases? First, pause. You don't have to respond right away. You don't have to explain yourself. You can simply say, "That didn't sit right with me. I need time to think." That alone interrupts the pattern. It gives you space. And space is where your power grows back. It's okay to outgrow the roles you were given. The fixer. The nice one. The one who never makes waves. Because those roles may have kept the peace. But they also kept you small. And you're not small. You're wise. You're worthy. And you're allowed to have boundaries, even now. Especially now. If you've been made to feel like your reactions are too much, your memory is wrong, or your needs are inconvenient, please know, that's not love. That's control. And the moment you name it, you take the first step toward freedom. Sometimes the most damaging phrases are the ones you've heard your whole life. Phrases like, "You're too sensitive. That's just how I am, deal with it. If you loved me, you'd understand." These may sound like passing comments, but they carry weight. Especially when they come from someone close, someone you've trusted for years. Let's talk about "you're too sensitive." That one hits hard. Because often, you were just being honest. You spoke up when something hurt. You cried when something overwhelmed you. You reacted like any human would when something wasn't kind. But instead of being heard, you were blamed for feeling it all. Maybe it was your mother who said it when you were a little girl. Maybe it was a partner who didn't want to deal with conflict. Or a coworker who made a cruel joke and didn't want to take responsibility. But here's the truth, sensitivity isn't a flaw. It's not weakness. It means you have a heart that notices. That feels deeply. That cares. The people who shame you for that? They often don't want to face the impact of their own behavior. So if someone tries to make your emotions the issue, pause. Ask yourself, am I being too sensitive? Or are they being too hurtful? Because there's a difference. And you're allowed to feel what you feel. Then there's, that's just how I am. It's said as if it's an excuse to stay emotionally lazy. Someone raises their voice, shuts down when things get hard, walks away in the middle of an important conversation, and then they shrug and say, that's just me. But love isn't about staying the same when your behavior hurts others. It's about growing, adapting, listening, repairing. We all have habits. We all have flaws. But when someone uses their flaws as a shield, instead of a starting point for change, that's not love. That's avoidance. And you're not unreasonable for asking someone to speak kindly. Or to listen when something's bothering you. Or to stop treating you like your pain is too inconvenient to matter. And here's one that can be especially painful when it comes from someone you love deeply. If you really cared about me, you'd let it go. Or, if you loved me, you wouldn't be upset. This is manipulation dressed up as love. Because it makes you feel guilty just for having needs. Just for being human. It tells you that love equals silence. That to prove your loyalty, you have to ignore your own boundaries. But that's not how real love works. Healthy love says, I care about how you feel. Let's talk about it together. I'm listening. You've spent enough of your life walking on eggshells. Enough time explaining why something bothered you, only to be made the bad guy. And I want you to hear this, clearly, gently, and deeply. You are not too sensitive. You are not overreacting. You are not difficult for needing respect. You're simply waking up to patterns that never honored who you truly are. And that awareness? It's powerful. Because once you start seeing these red flags for what they are, you can stop questioning yourself. You can stop shrinking just to keep the peace. You can stop carrying the emotional weight that was never yours to hold. Healing takes time. Especially when these phrases have echoed in your life for years, even decades. But every time you pause, every time you name what's happening, every time you choose peace over people-pleasing, you're healing. You're choosing you. And let me say this loud and clear. You are not too old to set boundaries. You are not too late to change the dynamic. You are not too broken to deserve kindness. You deserve peace. You deserve clarity. You deserve relationships that feel safe, not confusing. And if someone won't respect that, no matter how long they've been in your life, then it's okay to take space. It's okay to change the rules. It's okay to protect your heart. Because your heart matters. If this video spoke to you, I'd love to hear your story. You don't have to share everything, just whatever's on your heart. Leave a comment if you feel called. You are not alone in this. And if you'd like to keep walking this healing path together, feel free to subscribe. There's more support waiting for you. But for now, take a deep breath. You've already done something brave just by being here. You saw the red flags. You named them. And that's how real change begins. You deserve a life that feels calm. You deserve conversations that feel kind. And you deserve love that feels like love, not a battle to be heard. And it's not too late to have that. Not at all.